Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Barnstable this morning. Just about 20 minutes toward the top of the hour on this Thursday. I'm Sarah Colvin, and joining me on the phone, I welcome our Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf. Senator Wolf, good morning.
Good morning. We missed on Tuesday, but here we are on Thursday. It's good to talk to you.
Exactly. Good to talk to you as well. So, Senator, a lot in the news this week regarding an amendment that kind of got slipped into the budget that was passed by the House. Now, I know it's not unusual for these kind of smaller amendments to get in there, but this one kind of interesting in that it was proposed for something here on Cape Cod by a rep that is not from Cape Cod, and there was really no consultation done with you or Rep Vieira, who is in charge of that Pompanesett Bay area. So talk to me a little bit about what's going on here.
Well, Sarah, as I'm driving to Boston this morning, the word gross has popped into my head. That's G-R-O-S-S. And it has two meanings. One is disgusting, and the other is really big when we refer to gross. And in this case, the double entendre works. This is disgusting, and it's actually, from my perspective, a really big deal. You have Mintz Levin, who is a law and lobbying firm in Boston, that asked a Newburyport representative, for some reason that the Newburyport representative isn't willing or unable to disclose, file an amendment that included only GPS coordinates with no reference to geographical location that would effectively kill an aquaculture grant in Pompanesett Bay, close to some really wealthy property owners, and it stinks of a gross misuse of government. How's that for summing it up in a nutshell?
It certainly is, and it's really, there's a lot of things that really kind of raise red flags when it comes to this, and I know that, the budget process is a massive one, and there are so many amendments and so many things that to have to look over and consider and keep in mind that obviously you can't, scrutinize every last little thing, but certainly looking at, instead of saying Pompanesett Bay and Mashpee and putting those, Latin longitude codes in there, kind of tells me that this was trying to get swept under the rug.
Well, how about not calling any of the Mashpee officials? How about not calling the aquaculture grant holder and fishermen? How about not calling David Vieira, who's the representative, not calling Dan Wolf, who's the state senator, and quietly trying to get this through at night? If I sound outraged, Sarah, I spend a lot of time, because I believe it's a higher calling, defending government and trying to get citizens not to be angry about how the system is working or, in this case, failing. So for somebody like me who gets into this to really try to make our government work better for more people, this is such a headwind for people like me. It just really pisses me off.
So what can be done at this point? Obviously, the budget still has to go to the Senate, so I'm going to assume that this really isn't going to go any further. But it makes kind of you take pause and take a look at what's going on in the legislature in terms of, people kind of sticking to their jurisdictions. Are there any kind of rules and regulations? I mean, could you propose things in the Berkshires without, conferring with anybody out there in the western part of the state?
No, and that's not an issue of protocol, even though there is protocol involved. It's an issue that rests on the belief that knowledge is the foundation of good legislation and good budget, good amendment. So therefore, if you believe that knowledge is the foundation of it, you would want to talk to the people who are knowledgeable. For example, if that legislator had bothered to talk to either David Vieira or myself, they would know that aquaculture has been identified as one of our primary areas for economic development in this region, and has huge environmental benefits as well. It's one of the best natural denitrifying opportunities we have is to develop aquaculture, specifically oyster beds. So information might have, if this legislator had cared, made him at least take pause and say, well, we've got Mintz Levin, who is obviously representing somebody, but we also have knowledgeable people, legislators, town people in Mashpee, the actual business people involved in this, who could shed some light through information on whether this is good legislation or not. And that never happened.
So, Senator, have you talked with your colleagues? Have you talked with Rep Vieira, with the other, the delegates down here on the Cape about, any particular next steps for this?
Well, just real quickly, you asked if I would ever file legislation in someone else's district. The answer is yes, but I would never do it without consulting with them and getting background and really understanding it. And if that all happened, probably the rep in that other district would end up wanting to file it, right?
Indeed.
The process going forward will be when the Senate takes up its budget, will this amendment be in or not? Well, it certainly isn't going to be in there from me. So the question is, if Mintz-Levin is the all-powerful, maybe they'll get another senator to file it. If that happens, I will do whatever I can to kill it in the Senate version of the budget. If I successfully can do that, it still ends up going to conference committee, because an amendment that's in the House budget but not in the Senate budget is conferenceable. And if the conference committee actually includes it in the budget, it may be that it still exists when we get to a budget that's delivered to Governor Patrick. If that happens, we have yet another chance to kill it, and that would be to ask the governor to do a line item veto. I don't think it'll ever get to that point.
Indeed, but I mean, certainly, things like this kind of do shed a light on the unfortunate things that can happen, in politics. Does it raise concerns for you at all about perhaps other things like this going on?
Well, no. I mean, the good news about all this is the representative who did this isn't running again, so at least we'll be rid of him. Does it raise concerns? There is nothing more important in a democracy than people believing in their government, than the government being a legitimate representative government. And the credibility and legitimacy of government is called into question when you have backroom, opaque deals like this that are filed by people who are simply doing it to scratch someone's back with God knows what coming down the road in return for doing it. And that, were there ethics violations here? Is there a legal issue? Probably we'll never know, because this system has become very good at, you find tracks leading up to the carcass, but you never can figure out who left the track. So, there's a concern on a lot of levels. You can tell that I'm kind of torqued up on this one.
Absolutely. And Senator, I thank you so much, of course, as always, for joining us and sharing your perspective on this. Certainly a very interesting story to break here on the Cape, and good luck up in Boston today.
Could I just say one closing thing?
You may.
There's always sort of a caveat with a deal like this. Maybe there is information that I don't know yet that would make this all okay, in which case I will owe people apologies. But this story broke enough days ago so that if there was information out there that was germane to making this okay, we should have it already. So, I started off the first couple of days after hearing this believing that maybe there was a reason or that I was missing something. But that does not appear to be the case now.
Indeed, and I think, we'll continue to learn more a little bit about this, but, as you say, if there was information, it would be out there by now. Senator Wolf, thank you so much, and we'll talk with you again next week.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Cape and Island State Senator Dan Wolf